Hey everyone, my name's Ren. Have you ever looked at your gaming backlog and thought, just how am I going to get through all these games? And then a Steam sale comes around and you just added 10 more games to that list? This is the exact thought I have every time I open up my Steam library to play a game. It may not be very different from you, but I have over 250 games that I need to get through in my gaming backlog. In addition to those 200 games I currently already own, I also have over 550 games in my wish list that periodically go on sale. A lot of people I know go through this exact same issue, and as you may be able to see from other channels, many people are trying to get their gaming backlog down. However, if you have seen those videos, you may know that other people have their own strategy to bring into this challenge. Fortunately, they don't always tackle the full game. I wanted to see what a gaming backlog challenge is like when they commit to finishing as many of those games as possible. I've been trying to get my gaming backlog down to 0 since I started in 2021 when I first started doing PC gaming. At first, most of those games I owned were ones that my friends helped me get in order to build out my Steam library, or games I wanted to play but never could since I had been a console gamer for my entire life. As this list quickly rose from 10 games to 20 to 40, I realized it was becoming very difficult to keep track of all these games, and even harder to keep track of all the others I wanted to play. And thus, my backlog began. And since then, I have been trying to get it down. With each passing Steam sale, I had to figure out a way to organize both my wish list so I knew what to buy, and what I was playing to help myself decide what to play next. We have all had that type of decision paralysis where we cannot decide which game to play next. Should I play the next game in the series? What if that makes me get burnt out of the same mechanics? Should I jump to the game I just bought? What about the one that's been sitting in my library for years? I decided to bring out the spreadsheets to answer this question. I need a few of them to help me keep track of everything. So I built out a system for helping me decide how much effort a game was going to take, and in turn, what to then play. Playing too many Ubisoft games in a row would ruin the experience of every Ubisoft game you'd play. So I decided to use a random number generator to help myself decide. By putting in all the games in alphabetical order and then using a random number generator, I could effectively take the decision-making paralysis out of my hands. Additionally, I try to play games in the order that they come in a series. That way I could play the oldest game first and eventually move up to the newer ones. This allows me to not only jump from different genres and prevent gaming fatigue, but it also gets me to try games that I may not have done so before. Jumping from a boomer shooter to an isometric CRPG to a farming sim would seem outrageous, but it allows you to enjoy each experience as its own thing. Unfortunately, that doesn't help me when it comes to figuring out which games to buy, so after getting over 100 games on my wish list, I knew I would need to figure out what I was going to spend my money on. A number generation system doesn't work when you're trying to calculate more than just what game to play next, as sales are a more nuanced system. You have to take into consideration what a discount is, how much the game costs, and generally if people think it is a good or bad game. Thus, I created something I call my 30s rule. I only decide to buy a game and all of its DLC if that game is $30 or less, 30% off or more, and if it has 70% positive reviews or higher. This way, I can make sure that I'm getting games that are fairly discounted, fairly priced, and are held in fairly moderate or high esteem. There are exceptions to this, however, such as when someone else may buy a game for me, or the extremes of the 30s rule. If a game is at a steep discount, only a few dollars, or if I have personal experience playing it, then I may make an exception to buy it, even if it does not meet all of the criteria. It is hard for many of us to find the money to drop on a game, especially when it comes out. So this doesn't mean I will play many of the newest titles. It does have some bad and good to it. On the bad side, I won't participate in much of the hype many games get around launch. I did not experience Baldur's Gate 3 when it launched, and I still haven't as of the time of this upload. However, the good that comes with it mainly comes in having a complete package to play. Take, for example, Cyberpunk 2077, a game which was considered one of the worst launches in gaming history. Had you played it when it released in 2020, you would have felt like you wasted money. But getting it in 2024, 2025, or even 2026, both the main game and the DLC Phantom Liberty, and all of the free updates for the same cost as getting the buggy main game at launch, you can't pass that deal up. I call this part of the backlog strategy patient gaming, knowing that you'll be getting the complete experience for less than what most people paid for it. When it comes to the videos itself and what I'm calling Operation Backlog, I wish to tackle the games in the same order I play them, starting all the way from the beginning of my PC gaming journey before I even had my system in place. I will begin with the very first game and work month by month. As it has been several years since I started this, and will likely be a long time before I even catch up to where I am now, there will be some delay on what month I am talking about and when it is posted. However, I hope that I will be able to talk about the time it takes to truly appreciate a game and everything that goes into it. I will talk about several points before getting into the games themselves. Many people talk about their experiences with a game immediately, and while that's great, a lot of it lacks the context that is important for people to know when they're deciding if they want to buy a game. For example, who created the game? Are you expecting an indie game? Or a major Bethesda blockbuster with just as many major bugs? Is the studio still in existence? Are they shut down or getting bought out by somebody else? How does this affect the game itself? All of these are relevant questions, but not just questions about the developers and the publishers, but it's important to understand the behind the scenes on a game's creation. If a game was delayed many times, it may impact whether the vision of its developers had to be scaled down. If they barely had enough money to create the end of the game, how did this impact the finale to it? While the game itself matters, we must also consider the behind the scenes if they're available, so we can get a full picture of what the game was like and what it could have been. Another important question is, how did the game actually perform? This is harder to see, but can be decided with a few critical metrics. The first of it is a forecasted sales over its lifetime on Steam. Most of the time, public information surrounding a game's sales numbers or the total number of units sold is limited and hard to come by. Thankfully, others have created tools to see if we can generally predict this. A wonderful website by the name Gamealytic, link in the description, has come up with a formula to predict units sold and generally what the estimated revenue is. They have an entire detailed article posted on their website, also linked below, that explains their general process. They state that they can predict units sold with an 80% average accuracy, 30% of the games within a 10% margin of error, and 100% of games within a 70% margin of error. When discussing sales, strictly on Steam, I will be referencing Gamealytic. Another important factor is critical reception and how much the game was liked by the critics. This one is hard to average, and we will be using multiple websites to help get a judge of this. The one that I will be prioritizing is OpenCritic, a review aggregator, and a reliable source for critical reception for newer releases. However, OpenCritic doesn't host all the games that I've played or plan to play, since much of their database was established post-2015. So for those, before that time, I will be using Metacritic. The best part of Metacritic is the fact that they host reviews over a long period of time and aggregate reviews even from early 2000s or beyond. What is truly unfortunate is that some of the games we'll be looking at within Operation Backlog aren't mainstream games, and thus won't have critical reception at all. I say this is unfortunate because I believe that all games should have a chance to grow and be looked at from a critical lens to promote them and the developers. Our focus shouldn't be solely on the new Assassin's Creed or Hideo Kojima game, and the fact that we pay so much attention to those is what allows for true hidden gems to stay hidden. With this, the last function that we will use to determine how a game performed is public reception from the game's users. Steam is fantastic in this regard, as reviews posted by users are easily visible and will also show how many hours those people had in it. This is one of the primary ways I determine how to buy a game, but it will also be how we determine how the game did, and what overall lingering problems most people seem to have with it. Personal experience is great for determining my personal enjoyment, but maybe I didn't run into the same problems that other people did, or maybe the game simply wasn't made for me to enjoy. All these are important factors to consider. After reception, I want to touch upon how long these games take to beat on average, the bang for your buck. If you drop $20 on a game and it turns out to be only 5 hours long, you may feel like you didn't get enough game for the amount of money you spent. Knowing how long a game takes to beat will help you decide if it's worth your money. However, games being too short isn't the only thing to take into consideration here. If you are like me, you have a full-time job while trying to play games in your free time, or you may have a family or other responsibilities. A major issue that some games have is bloat, and if a game is bloated just to increase playtime, that is also a problem. Knowing whether a game will take 20 hours to beat or 200 will help those with time constraints know whether they should pass up a good sale. Speaking of sales, we also need to talk about the money. As all games I am covering will likely be under $30, they will be fairly affordable. However, one point that I briefly touched upon earlier is that I like to get a complete experience. That means all of the DLC involved, and that will always increase the price significantly. When I calculate games for my Steam sales, I usually attempt to buy the edition that comes with the most stuff, or close to it. Others may not care about this part, but I want to touch upon the deals you can get when you go for all of the DLCs. For someone who only wants to experience the base game, I will also cover those prices. Certain games will also have bundles with other games within the same genre, or where developers have a working relationship with each other. These bundles are fantastic for getting a great deal, as discounts get better when you have games within that bundle already. While these bundles may not be for everyone, it is important to note so that everyone has the chance to get the best deal possible. When looking at pricing, it is also good to look at the lowest price ever. While we like to assume that games will go on the same or better discount as time goes on, this isn't always the case. A game could go on sale for 75% off for an anniversary deal, but only go on sale for 50% during the seasonal sales. If you want the best deal, you should keep an eye out on that lowest price and try to match it as close as you can. On Steam, many of us tackle sales during the major seasonal ones. However, if there is a game that you are really wanting, you may not have the patience to wait months for the next one. This is why another point I want to discuss is sale frequency. This can be measured in multiple different ways. There are games that have gone on sale only seasonally, either during the spring, summer, autumn, or winter sales. There are games that go on sale rarely, or ones that aren't even discounted during every major seasonal sale. Then there are games that go on sale frequently, during all the major seasonal sales, and then just randomly throughout the year. Finally, we have the games that are almost always on sale, and you likely will just have to wait a few weeks for the next chance to grab it. After all this, we will talk about my personal experience with a game. What about it was fun to me? Did I enjoy the gameplay and progression? Did it offer a good challenge, or was it a walk in the park? Did the game get dull after a while? Was I engaged for a long time? Did it meet the expectations that I had for it in my own head? One major part of a game that I put emphasis on is the story. I'm a huge fan of role-playing games where choices made during the gameplay matter. Based on this, I may be more forgiving of games where the gameplay seems boring or repetitive as long as it offers an engaging and interesting story. On the flip side, I may find games where the combat is the primary experience to be boring and repetitive. Everyone has their own tastes in games, and it is important to recognize your biases. Additionally, even though I do prefer role-playing games, they're also a trap. A game that offers great choices that have major impact may get extra favor by me in my review, but if a game fumbles and makes choices seem almost meaningless, or doesn't get me to care about the story they're hyping up, it will always suffer greater than if it was just a normal, linear story. One final metric for us to see how good a game is the completion. Steam begins to mark people as being within the completion statistics for achievements once they open a game once. If many people boot up the game once but cannot get it working, or have trouble starting it and don't even get the first achievement, then it may be a huge sign that a game isn't worth as much as it appears to be. Most first achievements pop for things like completing the first mission, a tutorial, or getting a first kill. So not reaching one of these means someone has given up on a game very quickly. On the other side, getting the final achievement may also be telling for how much a game can keep people's attention. If 90% of people got the first achievement, but only 8% of people got to the end, it may seem like a game cannot keep you playing for very long, or runs into major issues throughout. I always attempt to finish every game that I play. There have been a few where either they didn't have official endings, I didn't get a hang of the mechanics, or they were so bad I had to give up. Thus with this, I will also showcase my time until completion, my percentage of achievements collected, and the rarest achievement that I have. I will also mention the rarest achievement of the game and how difficult or not difficult it is to get. All of this will help us get a good idea of how much I was able to experience and whether or not you may be able to get more out of it. And finally, we get to the score for the game. I rank games based on two critical metrics. The first is my enjoyment and what I would rank it out of 100%, which is being based off a grading scale, where 100% is S tier, 90 to 95 is an A- or A, 80 and 85 is a B- or B, and so forth. No, anything below 55 is an F. Based on this tiered system, I will then give it a recommendation. These I base on whether or not I believe it is a good purchase for someone to make. Anything that scores low are considered do not recommend games, and I cannot in good faith tell you to spend your money on it. Above that are games I only recommend on deep discounts, sales where you can get it for 90% off or less than $5. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't waste your time on it. After that are games that I recommend getting on a normal sale. And then come the games that I would have bought at full price. And while I always recommend buying a game on sale, these are the types of games that if you want it, you should get it. And then there are the games at 100%, the S tier. These are the games that I consider must-plays. If you have a limited amount of time to play a game, or only $30 to buy a game, you should spend it on one of these. I appreciate you tuning in for the explanation for Operation Backlog and staying until the end of the video. I look forward to you staying with me as we tackle this gaming journey together. I hope that I get to save you money, time, and energy. Genuinely, thank you so much for your time, and may you have luck for the rest of the day.